Right now, some new concerns linked to the refugee crisis putting Europe on edge and raising questions about a defining feature of the European Union, that being its open borders and the ability to travel within most of the Eurozone without having to carry a passport. Sweden is now looking to expel tens of thousands of asylum seekers, according to that country's interior minister. In relation to its population, Sweden already has the highest number of migrants applying for asylum in Europe. And Germany may have a growing problem on its hands as well, with the number of Islamic militants returning from the battlefields of Syria and Iraq on the rise. Germany's police chief now says more than 400 people are being watched within that country. KT McFarland joins us, former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense under President Ronald Reagan and, of course, a Fox News national security analyst. Is it too late to pull back on this for Europe?
Yeah. I think, it's not just the whole European Union, open borders, we're going to travel freely without a passport. I think it's way past that. And here's why. It's because the northern European countries, particularly Germany and Sweden, have said, come, they've opened their arms. The migrants arrive in Italy and in Greece, the poorer of the European countries, and they go north. They come to better benefits, better opportunities. But once they get to Germany, once they get to Sweden, half of them are turned back. Where do they go? There's a man at the Gatestone Institute, Soren Kern, who's done just trailblazing work on this. He says that half of the immigration seekers don't even have passports. They have no paperwork. Half of them have disappeared into the society. So not only is it an economic crisis, because who pays for it? Not only is it a crime crisis, because we've seen an outbreak of crime in these areas, but it's also a terror crisis, because ISIS and Islamic groups have said, look, we're putting our own people in there.
What does it mean for us?
Here's why I think that the Congress has been very excited about it, and rightfully so, in the last several weeks. It's because in the European Union, if you have a passport, a European passport that allows you then to come into the United States without getting a special visa. It's called the visa waiver system. And so a new legislation passed just 2 weeks ago saying, look, we have to tighten that up. And so what we as Americans have to understand is, look, we don't want, Europe's problems are of their own making, and we don't really want to import those problems here. And then the second thing is, if we are importing, deliberately asking for refugees to come in, can we vet them?
Why not be stricter if you're Europe? What is the reason?
They started out, and that's a really good question, because you scratch your head and think, how did they do this to themselves? A year ago, it looked like, if you look at the demographics and the population, a number of those northern European countries had low population growth. So they were thinking, we have to replenish our population. We'll get Europeans to come. We have low unemployment. This is all good. And I don't think people were looking ahead at what happens next and what happens after that.
What does happen next?
Well, I think that the Europeans are now playing the blame game. Just yesterday, in fact, some of the European Union said, look, it's Greece's fault because they don't have tighter border controls. And Greece and the southern European countries are saying, look, it's your fault, Germany. It's your fault, Sweden. You invited them in, and you haven't given us any money to process them to deal with it. So I think you'll see the disintegration of the whole concept of the European Union, which was open borders.
Some very high stakes, and something that we're going to be watching very closely. KT, thank you.
Thanks,
we'll see if this comes up at the debate tonight. Surely it's a big story.